This is a show about facing fear, unlocking courage, and taking action.
Courage isn't necessarily a daunting thing.
It's going to give you more purpose. It's going to give you more drive.
It feels like making a courageous decision is going to get you closer to who you aspire to be.
It's knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage.
It's not enough for financial goals if your family life sucks. It's not enough to have great family life if your health sucks. And it's not enough to have great health if you treat everyone else like terrible. To me, it's how do I become an overall holistic person that adds value to other people's lives?
You know, I haven't met too many people who have turned from entrepreneur to actorpreneur. And my guest today is probably the only one I've seen that I've interacted with that I've seen really make that leap. And look, this show, which is about following your heart, and even when it's hard, even when you're afraid, is about taking those leaps. And I'm joined by Stephen Cox today, who is doing some pretty amazing things. First of all, maybe does it feel courageous? Because in some ways it's like there's money in the bank now, right? So there's some risk is mitigated because of, well, let's back up. I'm introducing Stephen Cox, who is the founder and CEO of TakeLessons. Do you call it TakeLessons?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which was sold to Microsoft.
Right.
So, and congratulations, by the way. What a journey that was.
Thank you.
Why don't we kind of go back first and do that? Like, how does a kid go from, so did you grow up in Kentucky or did you go to school in Kentucky?
Yeah, grew up in Ohio, so Midwest guy, and ended up in school in Kentucky. And then at some point, then I ventured out west.
And did you just always have that in you, where you're just, life is an adventure and off we go? Or how did you get west?
Yeah, great question. So there's an old saying that I learned, and that is what the child does not have becomes the obsession as the adult.
Ooh.
And there's a lot of psychology to unpack there. But I grew up, in just a town called Dayton. It's a little mid-sized town directly in the Bible Belt. My dad was a Pentecostal preacher, and mom was a homemaker and played the organ at church. But Ryan, we grew up really, really poor. And some people talk about kind of making it in welfare. Like I distinctly remember, driving to the government centers and picking up the 5-pound blocks of government cheese in the white and black. And it was kind of like Velveeta sort of tasting, but like a lot worse. And that's how we grew up. I remember one distinct day. It was in the middle of winter, and it snows in Ohio, unlike out here on the west coast. But it was freezing cold, probably somewhere close to zero. And we were sitting at the dining room table, and my mom asked me to run out to get the mail. And so I did. So I booked it outside, swung open the door, came back in, and had grabbed the mail. And it just freezing outside. And it was February or something. I probably was 11, somewhere around 11 or 12. And I gave the mail to my mom, and we were all sitting around there. And, it's mom and dad, and we had 4 kids. And she opened the Dayton Power and Light bill and just opened it, read it, looked at it, and then just burst into tears. And I just remember hearing her say, like, I have no idea how we're going to pay this. I don't know how we're going to pay this. And there was just almost this exasperated, exhaustive, overwhelming feeling that I saw my mom go through. And I remember that day because there was something inside of me that clicked. And I said, I will never be in a situation where I'm putting my family through this. And so I guess the lack of financial wherewithal drove me to try to figure out how to not repeat that sort of pattern in my own life. And so some people, I remember even through college, and then I would try to start businesses. And I remember I sold when disk drives came out, like the 5.5-inch floppy. I'm a little older. They came out. And so, college students needed these. So I figured out a way that I could buy those in bulk and then sell them on college campuses and basically make a buck or two and try to pay for my school. But it was always kind of like those sorts of things. I needed a place to live. So I basically convinced this gentleman who owned real estate to let me take over 3 mobile homes, and I could rent out 2 and just live in one for free. And because I didn't have any money, so it was almost like a forced sort of thing. And Ryan, you talk a lot about courage. Part of my courage came from basically not having another alternative. Right. And so when you kind of hit that realization that it is more powerful to take action and less fearful, there is more at risk for you not to take action than for you to take action, then things become a lot easier for you. So I think that was kind of this repetitive cycle I got into, and people are like, "Oh, you're money hungry," and I'm like, "No, I'm just completely broken. I don't know how I'm going to eat." So it was kind of that sort of mentality, but I kind of developed that into a very, I think, healthy view of money. And it was about that time when I learned about Brian Tracy and Anthony Robbins and some of the motivational speakers that really kind of helped me understand at a young age, into my early 20s, late teens, that money makes a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. And I always kept that in check, and knowing, hey, this is a great opportunity for me to continue to better my entire life, not just financially, but understand. What I learned along this path was I had a mentor, and he said, "Listen, I hear you say, what do you really want?" And I don't know, I was like 21 or 22. I'm like, "I want to be a millionaire. I got to be a millionaire." He said, I remember him just thinking, and he said, "So, Stephen, that's not a bad place to be, but don't be or don't want to be a millionaire for the sake of being a millionaire. Want to be a millionaire because of the type of person you need to become in order to have that goal and to attain that goal." And it didn't quite kick in realization of what that meant, but until much later. But really, it is the kind of the driving force of kind of how I've viewed my life, and has led me even in the past 20 years. It's not just the pursuit of materialism or that sort of thing, but it is the pursuit of a higher character necessary, in my view, in order to attain the type of goals that I want to attain. It's not enough for financial goals if your family life sucks. It's not enough to have great family life if your health sucks. And it's not enough to have great health if you treat everyone else like terrible. And so to me, it's how do I become an overall holistic person that adds value to other people's lives? And money becomes part of that. Mission becomes part of that. Taking risks become part of that. And so I think what happens over a period, Ryan, is that courage becomes habit, and you get into the habit of taking calculated risks, or being courageous, not having all the information, but taking action anyway, continuing to build up your knowledge and skills so that you can act in the best way possible and minimize the probability of loss. So all of those things, again, it's very hard at the beginning. For me, it benefited me because I didn't have anything to risk. I was like, I have 0 to start with, so it's all upside. But over time, what happens is you start developing these habits that turn into pursuits lifelong.
I mean, just so the audience is aware, you and I both lived in San Diego for the same time for quite some time before. I mean, now you're up in LA, you're going for it. But it wasn't like we were best friends, right? It wasn't like we were enemies, but it wasn't like when we saw each other, it was always easy.
Cordial,
But
easy.
we haven't spent a lot of time together, but I guess I sort of set that up to go, I'm sensing that you're an old soul. And maybe that's because you had to grow up fast. Maybe that 11-year-old version of Steven who remembers that moment and that that's when it began, and off you go onto your journey. Maybe it was before, maybe not. But I mean, the other reason I'm saying like you're an old soul, the idea that you had a mentor at 21 and declared a mentor, consciously declared a mentor, knew who Brian Tracy even was. And I'd love to know, like, how old were you when you started stumbling into those types of people? Because I was so afraid. I was just trying to survive New York City.
Mhm.
There was a lot more fake it till you make it than I would like to admit. And it was, I'm gonna have to outwork you if I'm gonna survive. And that's just the way it is. Because I'm clearly not smarter than you other people in New York. I'll just stay here all day, all night, and outwork you. And that's the only way I'm gonna survive. So for me, it wasn't until I was in my 40s, which is where I am now, that I even felt I found my first mentor, which was a guy named Steve Wilhite, who was hired by Steve Jobs as to run marketing for Apple for a bit.
Mhm.
And that was the first time in my whole life where I felt like this man is like what I like. Yes, like, where have you been? Where were you for the last 2 decades? I wish I could have run into you. So to start, when do you feel like you started to seek out others on your path? When exactly did you move to California? Did you know about like the Brian Traces of the world beforehand? Or did you stumble into them once you got here?
Yeah, great question. I think the earliest I remember I remember graduating from high school. Again, none of my family had ever gone to college. I happened to have um, a gal that I was dating at the time who was extremely instrumental in my life. Um, Somehow she's like, "Listen, where are you going to school?" I'm like, "I don't know." She's like, "Well, you're going to college, so I will help you." And she was in college, and she did. She drove me around until we figured out how to get into college. And it was there that I started kind of, I don't know, just I think it was that part out of need. Like I was just trying to struggle and figure my way, through this. And here I was in this new city, which was in Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky University, and I didn't really know anyone. I didn't know a single soul, so I was just kind of trying to survive. And I remember someone, and I can't remember who, but they gave me a tape, like the old, the
Mm-hmm.
cassette tapes,
Yep.
and it was of Brian Tracy. And I got this job up in Lexington, which was about 30 minutes away. And I would drive my little 83 Mazda GLC up there every day after school. And I would pop that tape in and wore it out. It just spoke to me. He's like, "Listen, if you think differently, you can become different. If you get people who already have done it, you can save a lot of time because you don't have to make the same mistakes." I'm going, "Oh, okay, I'll just do that." And I wasn't like, I think when we get older, we start throwing up reasons why things won't work, or, yeah, but, it's kind of the, yeah, maybe. But I think at that age, you're kind of new and you haven't been jaded yet. So you're just able to find a tape and go, "Oh, okay, well, that guy just says I need to do that. I'll just go ask some people who are successful and I'll find one." And that's exactly what I did. It wasn't like much pre-planning. It was just Brian Tracy said this, and then I just went and did it, and it just worked. And I just thought that was the way it was. I was like, "Oh, okay." It was very, very simple. And part of it I think was luck, and I think when you find a good mentor, and I had a few throughout my 20s that I think kept me out of more pain than which is a giant help, right? I can't say like they catapulted me forward, but they just kept me away from a lot of things that could have been terrible, even in just like straight little business deals I was trying to do at the time. So I started young back then. And I remember, I think my biggest start was I was 16. I was a junior in high school. I bought my mom a scale for Christmas. Bad idea. Don't ever do that. Not a good idea. But I remember I stepped on that scale and I weighed 205 pounds, a little fat kid. And I'm like, "Well, no wonder I can't ever get a date. I didn't realize I was this like fat." So I just got really angry. And I remember I went upstairs and I grabbed a piece of paper and I ended up just writing down things I wanted differently in my life. I wanted to make baseball team. I wanted to date. I wanted to go on a date. I wanted to lose weight. And I somehow went to the library. I made copies of that. I posted it on my locker. I posted it in my room, and something magical happened. Within 12 weeks, I had lost 55 pounds. I had made varsity baseball, and I was dating the homecoming queen. And little itty bitty wins in today's time. But I remember going, oh my God, this is the secret. If you just write down what you want, look at it, make some changes along the way, you'll not hit everything. And I think out of that, I think it was a list of 11 things, which I still have that paper today, by the way. I think 9 of them came true.
Can you please send me that? Can you find that for
yeah.
real?
Oh yeah. I have it my goal sheet. I'll send it to you.
Well, first of all, I am now showing my own cards. All right. So I'll acknowledge that. I think that is an incredible gift that you can, if you build it, they will come. I mean, like if you write it, you can make it and make it happen. For me, I definitely believe in state it and create it. I'm a state it and create it guy. Anytime I've had fear, even when I know I needed to do something, the minute I can just get it out of my mouth, I know it's going to happen. With my book, I was terrified to write a book. I'm not qualified to write a book. How do you do that? The minute I put it actually out there, the book got better. Like the content got better because people are like, I love the topic. You need to talk to this person. So I'm actually going to do the same thing right now, which I have not announced, for something that I know I'm going to do. And I'd love for you to be involved in this. So I had an aha moment down at Chip Conley's Modern Elder Academy. For those of you who know the name, Chip, he was the Modern Elder at Airbnb. He's been on the podcast. He bought property down in Mexico. Steven, you'd love it. It's like right in your wheelhouse if you haven't been down there. But I got to go down there for 5 days in December and just sort of like, to be honest, the pie chart of why I went down was like 50% I need to disconnect and just go. 30% probably very curious if I was ever to launch a Courage Academy, how would I do it and what could I learn from there? And then, 10 to 20% collide with other amazing people, the Curiosity Project, and maybe have a breakthrough. And in that time that I was down there, I realized that what I'm missing for Courage, the level that I really, really want to play, is that I want to connect people like us that want to go for it. And it's just so lonely sometimes to be the leader. It's so hard to be the leader that the community piece is still what's missing. I don't love the word community now because social media has made community mean something I don't think it really means, but the tribe. Right. So here we go. Stated and created time for me. So I know I'm going to be launching something called Courage Week. I want this on the calendar every year in September. I kind of feel like we have a summer siesta, even though January 1st is when our new year starts. In our brains, we come back from summer, and I think that's the time to declare the thing you really want to go after. This is just my take. So I'm going to launch a Courage Week, and my hope is a decade from now, it's a trigger on the calendar that everyone can look to and turn to and go for it. And the it is going to be different for me than it is for you, or the it might be, by the way, it might not even be it for you. It might be like, I want to surround myself with others and help. I'm really good at helping you fulfill your version of the it. And that brings me joy too. So Courage Week is coming. I know that National Courage Day is going to be September 6th. I have lots of reasons why I feel like I like that day. This isn't about me right now, but you kind of inspired me to share that right now just because write for me, it's stated and create it. And so there you have it. First of all, will you join me during Courage Week?
If I'm not in acting class, sure, absolutely.
All right, cool. Do you
or on
like the
set
idea?
somewhere. What's that?
Do you like the idea?
Yeah, I do. So first thing, congratulations on, we'll call it putting it out to the universe. It's almost like the leap. You're standing on the edge and you're safe. And the moment you put it out there, there's risk, right? But that is the only way things start to to take place. So by putting it out there, first of all, congrats. And that's as you know, better than anyone, that's the very first step towards success. And I do like it. I think that there is you go into a beautiful environment with like-minded people that have different stories to tell, different, and we can all learn from each other. Is a kind of a beautiful process, and it feels genuine and sincere. Right? There are some of these sorts of things, in my view, that have kind of turned, I don't know, commercial. Commercial, not meaning financial, but just smoke and mirrors. And I'm not personally down with that. It's not my cup of tea. But kind of that authentic sort of, hey, we're here to just learn from each other, I think is a beautiful thing.
I'll keep you posted. Yeah, for
definitely.
now it is, and everything you just said is really what it is. It's yes, there's sure we can. Part of the programming is to allow people to connect that are going to come there, and part of the programming is to, I always joke, take the courage out of courage. Like, what tools do you actually need to make it as easy as possible for you to leave? And some of it is the network, and some of it is the tools. So anyway, let's get back on track. I just felt like this was the right time to share that.
Awesome. Congrats. That sounds great.
By the way, in some ways, isn't TakeLessons like it is a mentorship platform? Did you ever feel that? Was that part of it's sort of ironic that you've always had mentors, or whether it was ones you didn't know that was on a tape in your car, to the ones that you did know. By the way, I'm assuming you now met Brian Tracy.
Well, funny story. I won't stay here long. So I moved out here to San Diego and was running, and I think, and do you know Eric Berman?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. So
brother
I know,
from another mother.
Oh yeah, of course. So I met Eric, and I actually worked with him at his company in College Club. And then after College Club, he was doing some consulting. He called me and said, "Hey, I've got this meeting, and I could use your internet skills to kind of help drive this in." And it was Brian Tracy.
Of course.
And Eric, to this day, still runs all of Brian Tracy's marketing, and basically is his business partner. But I was on the very first meeting with him and Brian. And in fact, I just saw Brian at Eric's wedding last year. So just
okay, but hold on.
Human being.
When you actually had the moment to meet him, though, what part? Like, because you've got two options, right? You're like, do I keep it together, or do I just say thank you? Like, what path did you go?
I don't know. I don't know why I do this, but I actually had the same cassette tapes that I had when I was 22. And I brought them.
I love that.
I was like, he's like, wow, that's like a blast from the past. I go, this got me through, and I just wanted to thank you.
I love that, man. That's
so great. I think, it was heartfelt, and I think he appreciated it. He probably, honestly, he probably hears that 30 times a day, but he acted like I was the only one that ever told him, and that felt good.
Yeah. So as you go along your journey and you end up out here, take me through how TakeLessons ends up becoming a thing.
Sure. So I was in a brief history. So I was in college, graduated from college, and started working selling lab supplies. And I was living in Lexington, Kentucky at the time. And a guy had started a company out in Vegas and was looking for people to come out. And I said, well, what do they do? Said, oh, we're going to let people buy stuff over the internet. And this was 96. And I said, yeah, I heard about this internet thing. Great. So again, I was 24 at the time. And that was a Wednesday. That was a Wednesday. By Friday, I had quit my job. Saturday, I had packed up everything I owned and put it in a storage bin in Lexington, Kentucky, and rented a U-Haul truck and drove out west with two other guys to start an internet company in Las Vegas that we didn't know anything we were doing. It just sounded like a really cool idea because I had never been out west ever. And that was my first time out west. But again, at this kind of taking calculated risks And I don't know if this is a learned trait or kind of genetic. I do think my thesis is there's a combination of both. There might be a natural affinity towards it, but it is a muscle that you can continuously use to get stronger. And I do believe that.
Totally agree.
So I came out west, and that company did well for a while during the first internet phase. We grew from 8 people to 800 people, went public. I was able to kind of sell a couple shares before everything went back down during the first internet bust. And I took that and moved out to California. And I said, you know what I've always wanted to do? I just always wanted to play in a rock band. That's how I paid my way through college, was DJing. And so I come from a very musically oriented family and an artist family. So I just started writing songs and playing music, and I was doing it. I had, was able to save a little bit of money from the IPO, and I was out playing for fun. And my drummer in the band, Enrique, he was an incredible musician, master's degree in music performance, a fabulous human being. And he was the one that was good in the band, and I was like not that good, frankly. I was kind of like getting by, and he kind of covered for me a lot. But he came to me one day, and we were doing like this White Stripes thing, just 2 of us out playing, and he's like, "Hey man, I got to quit the band." I'm like, "Well, there's only 2 of us, and you're the only one any good, so this creates a conundrum for me." And I said, "Well, what's the problem?" He goes, "Well, I've been trying this music thing for like 6 years now. I just got married. We're trying to buy our first condo in Encinitas, and I just found out I have a baby on the way."
Wow.
"And I can't make a living." I'm like, "Oh, this sucks. You spent all this time in college and all this money. Like, what are you going to do?" And he said, "I've got a job lined up. I'm going to be a cook at Chili's restaurant in Mission Valley." And for those of you listening, Mission Valley is this, I don't know, the mecca of like Chili's and Cheesecake Factory restaurants here in San Diego. It's just this I don't know, place where people go to eat and shop. But that's the last thing he wanted to do, right? He wasn't a cook. He definitely didn't like Chili's, and he wanted to play music. And Ryan,
by the way, the fact that the better option was a cook at Chili's versus the band tells me that maybe you guys weren't that great of a White Stripes act, just between the 2 of us.
But here's the thing: there are so many groups, and frankly, we were okay.
Yeah,
we weren't going to make it, but
do you have that tape?
I do. Yeah, it's actually on Spotify. The band is called Across the Room. We have 2 albums out. You can check it out. Right, they are, I will just, for the record, they are 90s albums. So, and they sound like 90s albums, but they were a lot of fun. But to your point, he suffered, and we suffered the same thing that a lot of artists do. And I'll take artists and just innovators in general. And that is that they can be great at their craft, but it is very, very difficult to make a living doing what you love to do. And Enrique fell in that category. Great at what he did, very, very difficult to make a living. And so I said, well, I kind of got pissed. Here's my good friend who all he wanted to do was make people happy through his music. And he could not figure out how to pay his bills with it. So I said, well, are you working in studios? He's like, yeah, I'm recording as much as I can. I said, are you teaching? He said, yeah, I've got my poster. It's hanging up at the drugstore with all the little tabs down at the bottom, that you can rip off and with the phone numbers on it. He goes, yeah, but no one's calling me. And I go, man, why don't you use the internet? He goes, well, I don't really know much about that. I'm a musician. And I said, well, I got some experience with that from my prior company. I'll help you. And so we started TakeLessons in a spare bedroom in Mission Beach, which is just a little beach area of San Diego. And with the whole idea is if we can get enough people to the website, we can keep Enrique out of Chili's. And that was the only thought, right?
Did you ever make that t-shirt?
Save Enrique instead of save Pedro.
Yeah.
That would have been a good one. So luckily for us, there were tens of thousands of other artists and what turned out to be educators that had the same problem that Enrique did. And that is, how do I do what I love to do and not have to take a boring office job and do things that I have to do? And so we use that premise. Go ahead.
I was just ask, How often, I mean, is this the universe at work again? Or is this, you've now done this enough times and the muscle is built and there's a love and a passion for music. And you've just spent however many years understanding the internet, right? So you've taken a skill that you've learned, you've taken a skill that you've built, which I would say is resilience at this point. You jumped on this, let's go west to Vegas. So you've seen that before. You've taken the thing that you love. It sounds like you love the most or near the most, right? Across the room on Spotify, right? And then all of a sudden this little moment falls in your lap, right? That's like, I got a baby's on the way. Like, do you ever just sort of step back and go, why hasn't this been done? Pinch me moment. Thank you, universe. Or do you just feel like, wow, that's true. Like a lot of artists would just love to get paid to do what they love, and there's a need for this, and off we go. Like, how sentimental was this, really? I guess.
From a sentimental point, not that sentimental. And here
Yeah.
the reasons why is because, again, I was talking with Brian Tracy about this once, and I said, all these things are lining up, and this was, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I said, all these things lined up perfectly for me. And he goes, well, in a way. But what happened? Let me tell you what happened. He said, what you did is you started walking down a dark hallway and you got to a door and you twisted the knob of that door. And you know what happened? Nothing. The door was locked. But instead of you giving up, what happens is you kick the door a little bit and then you happen to turn and noticed another side hallway. And you followed that hallway down and there was a door there. And you twisted that knob and you know what happened there? Nothing. It was locked. But there was another hallway. And you got to that other hallway. Down to the end, there was another door. And you twisted that door and that knob and it opened. And you would have never had that door open if you didn't start walking down the hallways where the doors were locked. He goes, so yes, universe lines up some things for you, but at the same instance, give yourself some credit because you kept walking. And I do think there's this combination of the universe provides hints and breadcrumbs for us on what we should be doing. However, it is up to us to take the action in order to do that. The universe alone will not, I believe, John Assaraf always says, you must participate in your own rescue, right? The universe will provide, but you've got to step up.
Yeah. Well, stepping up, let's talk about a decade and a half of stepping up then, because once that door opens, I'm sure there's lots of other hallways and lots of other doors. Some doors are locked, some doors are open. You find some keys. I mean, it's 16 years to take lessons to a place where 25 million people a year now use the platform. And I think this is both online and in person, correct?
Right. Yes.
What a ride, huh?
And I wish I could say we were kind of like the, I don't know, the Instagrams or Airbnbs where everything was like up and to the left, that frankly, that was just never our path. We struggled to find a business model. There were a couple times very close. We were within a month or two of shutting down. And at the beginning, it was just my money. And that was deteriorating fast. Luckily, we did raise some venture capital over time, but it was harrowing. And my journey is, this looks like, and we all like to talk about the successes. But for any listener out there who is then asking, well, shit, I'm not having that level of, God, this is mine is hard. Let me be the first to tell you, and Ryan, I think you could echo this. Yes, it is very, very, very difficult. And it's easy to remember the successes, but I will go on record and say we had just as many failures in that business. But what we did is we learned and iterated from each one of those failures, and we started failing less, right? Year by year, we started understanding, where's our business model? How do we provide value to, a student and a teacher so they can match and meet in the middle? How do we make money from that? Who's interested in this model? How much do we have to, all these sorts of questions. And when you raise venture capital, we ended up raising about $22 million, 21 million, somewhere around there. there comes with expectations, on growth. And so now on top of just having to get the business model right and prove and be, a wonderful resource for your customers, you now have a new customer, and that's your funder. Sometimes that works out well, sometimes it doesn't. But for us, it was kind of 2 steps forward, a step back, 3 steps forward. But all during that process, I would tell people, I said, we're not, in fact, I don't know if you know Mike Kren. Mike Kren he's the head of Connect here in Startup San Diego here in San Diego. And he goes, a lot of companies are like unicorns where they just, they take off and they're doing great. He goes, and he said this with the most love possible. He goes, you're kind of like the Energizer Bunny or the cockroach. You just kind of refuse to die. Like, you just kind of keep going, and year after year. And we've had a great chuckle over that, but it's so true. It's like sometimes if you just figure out how not to die,
Yeah.
life takes care of itself. And all during this path, Ryan, there were hundreds of competitors, people that came out of the wood. Oh, yes, I'm doing this, and I've done some version of that. And probably out of the 120 companies over the years, there were 3 in our field that mattered, and mainly because we just stuck with it. Yeah, we were humbly, I think we were pretty smart, hired some great people, and we executed well. So it was certainly not a direct ride to the top, but it was a challenging ride that challenged me to become a better person, a better CEO, a better leader, and to make something that we're all proud of.
When you think back, and by the way, I so appreciate you sharing both sides, the realities of like the goods and the unicorn days and the donkey days, right? The cockroach days. When you think about some of those, this is a just don't die day. How often is it the 11-year-old version of you, boy, in there? Like, do you remember that little boy still in those moments? Is that boy still live in you? I mean, I'm trying not to lead the witness a little bit, but I do think that a lot of us are still like little boys and girls trapped in these adult bodies just trying to get by. So, like, what does it look like for you?
Yeah, great question. So we are, right? What happens to us, I believe, as children does reflect in our lives, and it is up to us to decide what parts of those we want to keep and what parts we're going to throw away. So for me, I remember, gosh, it was probably 8 or 10 years ago now. I went to a week-long, no phone call, no cell phone therapy session, I guess you'll call it, called Hoffman.
Oh, yeah.
And Hoffman, for me, what it allowed me to do is understand that there were a lot of things from my childhood that was still determining how I reacted today. And going through a kind of a week-long process allowed me to ask the question, where is this decision coming from? And does it belong in my life anymore? So many of us up to that point, and even me, up to that point, I was in my early 40s, I hadn't asked the right questions. I didn't know that some of these childhood beliefs were driving some of my actions. And just by being able to be aware, to ask the question, allowed me then to make the decision. In certain instances, I have decided to throw that away, right? I remember in one particular instance, we were going through this exercise, and I said out loud, we were yelling at our parents, I guess, in a safe environment. And I said out loud, I was like, Dad, you didn't take care of your own family. We had to struggle, and we struggled so much that I don't even want a family of my own. And I'd never said that out loud. And I didn't even realize that the reason that I had, I don't know, aversion to wanting kids at that given point in time or a family was because of the fear, an innate fear that somehow I would do the same thing my father did. And so that realization allowed me to set that theory in my head free. But there are other things that were happening and other feelings and thoughts that I decided to keep. And one of them was this kid who felt the pain of not being able to provide or not having enough. And so I have a mantra that I use, and it is that universe, help me balance being peaceful with staying hungry. Right. So I decided to keep the hunger because I believe for me, I still look at it as a driver and a motivator for me. And I use that to my benefit, and it no longer negatively directs my life. So I found a way to spin that into a strong positive. But the goal is being able to look at yourself and say, what are the actions that I'm currently taking that only reside in my head? They're no longer in the world. Whether it's parents did this to me, grandparents did that to me, uncle, whatever, in fourth grade I got beat up, whatever. That's not here today, but you're still letting it control your life. Make the decision not to. And by making that decision, it allows it really a lot of change.
I love how intentional you are. And by the way, that word hunger, interesting how that word might have evolved for you over the years to hunger, like stay hungry. And the journey that you're on now, I'd love to I'd love for you to sort of set the stage of where you are and what, because this is just audio, what I'm looking at. But before we do that, let's just sort of put a bow on Take Lessons real fast. So 2 real quick questions. One, you said you funded it at first. I'm sure there was an oh shit moment. and then you're like, well, how do you even raise money? How did that conversation even come about? And 21 million is not a small number. I'm sure that's over a period of time as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So what was the big aha learning moment for even asking for money or raising money? And then again, I wish we had 2 hours, right? And I really want to talk about what you're doing now. Talk me through this past year. You are officially free of Take Lessons, I believe. Correct?
Right. Yes.
All right. So let's go back to VC. How did that, asking for money, what was that like? How hard was that?
Well, in the first company, that company raised, and again, it caught the first internet bubble. So it raised, God, $114 million. And I watched, I wasn't the founder, but I was an early employee, and I watched the CEO just go out and talk to people, and they'd give him money. I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of how things work. And then at College Club, that company raised somewhere around $86 million or so. And the same sort of thing, still in the first internet bubble, right? So they'd go out, talk to people. And it happened that a buddy of mine introduced me to a VC that I then introduced to the company, and that VC invested. I'm like, oh, that's cool. If I ever start a company, I'll just go do that. I didn't really know any better, I think was the correct answer. When I started my company, I'd seen now companies crash and burn during that internet phase. I did have a little capital myself, so I put in the first, few $100,000, and I got to the point where I had to decide, listen, either I got to keep funding it, which is going to really start hurting here, or I've got to go get some money. And so we raised some friends and family money. And in fact, Eric was the very first investor in the company, as a matter of fact, Eric Berman.
Awesome.
And I think he put in $5,000. But I raised some money. I put a deck together that I'd seen, another guy do, and started talking to people here in San Diego who had raised money. And I raised probably $800,000 from friends and family. And that kind of got us through and I started learning that money then is expected to hit certain milestones. Once we've hit those milestones, that then gives us the liberty to go raise more. Okay, I see how we can build a business here. So we just focused on hitting those milestones. And then when we went out to raise venture, I don't know, at that point we were strictly music lessons. So a music lessons company, not really a VC play, but what I wanted to do is I said, if I could get this right for music, I could then tack on languages and tutoring and sports and all different types of things where people could learn both in person and online. And that was the vision from day one. And so we went out to raise venture. I'll tell you this real quickly. So I think the big change came when we were still in music. I was on a treadmill at Fit downtown at the club
Oh
downtown
yeah.
early in the morning. It was, I don't know, 6:30 in the morning. There was a guy on CNBC radio named CNBC. I was watching it, named Steve Hare. He was the corporate vice president at Best Buy. And he said, "Hey, we're going to go put these music stores inside of Best Buys, and we're going to sell musical equipment that ties with electronics, and we're going to have stores in there where you can learn to play." I'm like, "Huh, they need us. They don't know going to know what they're doing." So I got off the treadmill and I went home and I found Steve Hare's number and I called him, and he didn't answer my call. So I called him again, didn't answer my call 38 times, and he answered my call. Finally,
Wow.
he's like, "What do you want?" Jesus. And I told him. And 3 weeks later, we were in Minnesota or Michigan, wherever they're at. They're up there. I believe it's Minnesota. And we struck a deal where we were going to provide all of Best Buy stores with the lessons, and we were going to run that. And at that given point in time, I had no way to pay for that. So we took that deal, went and started talking to VCs. I talked to 114 venture capitalists for our first deal.
Wow.
But all it takes is one, right? You just have to find the one that believes in and already has a kind of a thesis around what you're doing. So we found that lead investor, Crosslink Capital, wonderful venture capital firm, and then we were off to the races.
I mean, first of all, to use the Tracy metaphor, it's like 37 locked doors, and not. By the way, it's the same damn door that you knocked on until the door finally opened, and then on the VC side. So wow, but what all option did you have? You had to make it work at this point.
Yeah, again, I think there's power. I was just talking to a friend. I'm hooking up with some guys up here, and his name's Andrew Lachevsky, and he is the producer. I'll remember the name of the show. It's like a concierge doctor show on USA. I'll remember it here in just a second. But basically, I asked him, I said, "Why did you get into production?" And he goes, "I had to almost live in my car for 2 years." I said, "What kept you going?" He goes, "What kept me going is I had only done this for so long that I knew that to go back and be a doctor or a lawyer or even a business person was going to take so long that I just didn't have any choice." And it's almost this thesis of kind of like, the bridge is burned behind me.
Yeah.
Right. I don't have the song, the show is called Royal Pains. I just remembered. But if you don't have the bridge behind you, you have no choice but to move forward. And Andrew had said, in some of my own words, that's kind of how he had experienced it, and I kind of had the same experience.
All right, we got 10 minutes to go here. Let's get to the rainbow.
Yeah.
There's a rainbow, right?
There
So
is.
what was the rainbow like? And did you kind of get to a point where you're like, it's time to sell this thing? Did they find you? How did that happen?
Yeah, great question, Ryan. So when you're taking venture capital, you are for sale immediately. That's the name of the game, right? They're not signing up so you can get a paycheck. They're not signing up for a dividend. They're signing up to exit. So as a CEO, that's part of the game. For us, we had been funded for a while, and there are cycles in the marketplace. And sometimes you are hot. Marketplaces as general as hot. And then other times you could have an incredible business, but you are not getting funding, period, because it's just out of favor. And you see these cycles both in public markets as well as private markets as well. So in our particular case, I had seen a couple of these markets where marketplaces were hot, and then they got cold, and we missed them. In our particular instance, the pandemic hit, and we were already doing very, very well, growing nicely, great team, and the pandemic hit, and we exploded.
Yeah, how could you
Our
not?
business grew exponentially over prior year, and I went to my board and I said, "Now's the time." And so we hired a banker and put our deal terms together, went and talked to a lot of people, had a lot of interest from both private equity as well as what we call strategics, which are people who could fit take lessons into their own business. And eventually, we had quite a few suitors, and that, a group out of the Pacific Northwest, Microsoft, ended up being the right place for us to continue to build. So we were very fortunate. The deal was, Microsoft's a great company. They are I'll call them very diligent in their acquisition process. And to get a deal done, there's these things called hair on the deal, which basically means they're looking for a reason to say no, just because the deal would pull from their brand. In our particular case, we didn't have all those negatives associated with our business. It's in a great industry. It helps people. It's wholesome, and they wanted into kind of this space to do a few things. So we were very fortunate. The people who are running the business now are extremely diligent and knowledgeable in kind of how businesses operate. So I couldn't have been happier. And more importantly, is all of our employees, not only did they keep their jobs, but they all got raises.
That's
And
awesome.
I don't know if you're Microsoft pays a little bit better than we could. So it was just a wonderful win-win opportunity. That deal closed last year. Well, yes, it was October like 15 months ago. And it's been, they're doing a lot of testing. They've expanded out. We were 96% US, and they just launched India. They're launching, Latin America. They're taking it worldwide and doing things that we just never had the ability to do. So I'm very, very happy and pleased with where they are.
I mean, two obvious questions come off that, both quick answers. One, are you like, oh man, they're taking it global? Like, I wish I still had a little part of it. Or are you like, fly, little bird, fly?
No, it's not my company. No, so I'm fine with that. It's there was a time, I always say this, there's a time in for a CEO or a leader, you need to know when your time is done, or else someone will tell you.
All right, question number 2. Enrique, how did he do in all of this?
Enrique. So a couple things. So Enrique never took that job at Chili's. And
Hey.
yeah, not only does he still teach on the platform, he has 2 beautiful daughters. He makes his living playing music, and he has toured the world now with Latin American artists. So he's doing very, very well. And one of my most proudest moments is I made sure that he also had founder stock in our company. And so when we exited, I was able to surprise him with a
Oh,
with a nice upside that he did not expect.
that's so cool, man.
Yeah,
Bravo. Seriously. All
thank
right.
you.
I can't wait to listen to Across the Room, by the way. That's on my list.
Nice.
So we're kind of right back to where we started, but it takes a while to hear the story, right?
Yeah.
So now what, right? Entrepreneur. Most entrepreneurs I know, after they, drive themselves mad on a beach, right? That line between busy and boredom is very thin. Are like, well, what's the next company I'm going to start? And I'll admit, what really drew me back to you, Stephen, was I saw one of your posts that you shared. It was even on LinkedIn or Facebook. I think it was on Facebook, actually. I could be getting this wrong. But it was you talking about this new leap that you just had to try. And you're in LA. You made the move. You sure look like you're in a studio. And still see tenets of music as there's a piano-ish behind you, correct?
Right.
Keyboard. So talk to me about acting and why you have to do this.
So I again come from I think I'm half business, half artist, and I come from an artist background. I happen to understand business pretty well. And what I learned from Take Lessons was that there is this crux where you could do both. You could do business, but also, doing artistry is along with it. And I also learned the value of jumping in, trying something new that you didn't know whether you could succeed or not. And some of those challenges are what creates the most growth in a human being, I believe. So when I was looking around, I took a few months off to try to figure out, who am I? What do I do next? And I had made a list of things that I potentially wanted to do. Sitting on the beach, luckily, was not one of them. I'm not. I know I'm not supposed to do that. But I had looked at politics. whether I wanted to get involved in public service and run for office. I had looked at starting another company, sitting on boards, or jumping into another creative aspect that I wanted to do. So I started looking around, talking to a few people, and I've done a little bit of theater in my day and always just had this draw to this. And so I started studying it and realized that the ability, first of all, what I knew is I wanted to, whatever I did next, I wanted to be very uncomfortable. I wanted it to challenge me. I wanted to do something new that stimulated my brain in a creative way. And I've always loved acting. I've done a little bit in my day. And so what I decided to do is not start another company, to run away from that which comes the easiest. And I did it on purpose to challenge me. And I wanted to get super uncomfortable. And so I moved to Hollywood. I'm in Hollywood right now. I'm in acting classes 3 to 4 days a week. I'm like, this is my full-time job. And I am running hardcore at it, and learning things that I'd never thought I would ever learn before. Being really uncomfortable in class. I'm obviously, like, the class is normally between 19 to 25, 6-year-olds. And I'm a tad bit older than that. And I just don't care. Right.
Yeah,
I just
awesome.
don't care. I'm here. And also people are like, well, you're just up there to learn, or like, are you going to like try out for a role? And I liken it to, if you're in high school football or college football and it's great if you go to practice, but the reason you're practicing so you can get in the game on Sunday. Right. And so I will also state for the record, so mark my word, I will absolutely be auditioning, and I expect to land roles, period.
Awesome.
I am applying some of my business, and that tenacity and that drive to a creative aspect. So not only am I going to get really good at just the creative aspect, but I'm going to drive this hard and have a ton of fun in the process. Like, I am enjoying myself like crazy. So I feel very fortunate.
That's so great. Well, look, to use the sports metaphor, right? Like, if you're still in Pop Warner or high school, let's say it's high school, you don't really jump right to the NFL, do you?
Nope.
So I'm assuming you feel at peace with where you are in your development as you continue down this path to be eventually ready to be spotted, to eventually be. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, my coach told me, he said, listen, this is a long road. You got to be ready for rejection. And immediately I remember being rejected hundreds of times by venture capitalists.
It's no
And
different.
so I just don't care. Like, it
Yeah.
just, everything I've done prior to now has just prepared me for this. In fact, I've got this on my screensaver. I'll read it to you. This was from, it says, "You're right on time for your next chapter. All the prior chapters prepared you for this moment, even though this is a page you've never seen before. Trust the process. You're ready."
So great. And you have fans already. Yeah, and I'm a fan. I mean, I'm rooting for you, and I can't imagine I'm the only one. And for those, look, just to throw it out there, and it, you can follow Stephen along. I know M. Stephen Cox is where you can find you on Instagram.
Yeah. M as in Michael. Yes.
M as in
M.
Michael.
Stephen Cox.
Are you gonna change your name?
I don't plan on it. I don't know. I kind of like my name, so we'll see.
Hey, who knows?
Right.
It's so funny. I throw these weekly dose of courage emails out every Thursday to just who needs a little nudge, right? And one that I know I'm doing that I haven't done yet is pretty much exactly what you stated. Yours was much more elegant. I'm usually pretty, like, much more layman. I'll just put it that way. And mine is, I think in life, the minute you care and don't care at the same time, you're on your way.
Yeah.
And I think it's so clear that you care and don't care. And, like, of course you care, and, like, it lights you up, and you also are able to not care, and you don't let gravity, the wrong type of gravity, put you down. And when you look at it the way you have it, it's all just the little battles, these little, you're exactly where you should be. It allows you to stay down the path that you're on. And wow. again, I think it's just so great what you're doing. You can't be an actor or not act on the idea of going for it. So thank you so much for giving us the story.
Yeah, it's great being with you today.
I think we're only in Act 2. We might be in late Act 1, by the way. I mean,
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot more to this story for sure.
You said the show is Royal Pains.
Yeah, Andrew's show is called Royal Pains, and that's now off air, but it ran for 104 episodes. One of the really long running show.
And we'll listen to Across the Room, and then I can't wait to add a third. Things Happen in Threes. That first commercial, or what happens if it's a commercial? Will you take it?
Probably. In fact, I'm doing a class January 24th or so that's specifically just teaching commercials, what the differences is and the different way of acting and what you're looking to, the objectives of the particular script. So I'm doing that. I'm also I'm looking at different sorts of acting realms. My coach says that it'll probably be 6 months or so before I'm actually start ready to audition. And I'm great with that. Like, I get 6 months to learn from some of the best people in the industry how to do this. And some of it comes natural. There's no doubt about it. I do have, thankfully, and I'm very humble that humble inside that it does come a little bit naturally to me. So it's not so off the wall that I can't do it. But there's so much learning. It's and I can't wait. I get to learn for the next 6 months before I even have to step up.
I mean, the irony that the CEO who sold TakeLessons is now taking lessons. Not
exactly.
It's there. All right, stay courageous, Steve. Great to see you. Thank you for joining us on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Courageous Podcast. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts so more people can find us. See you again next week.